Wasn't there some speculation that she was on Epstein's yacht at one point in time? There was like photos with her and Prince Andrew way back in the day when she was like in her early 20s. That's the big distraction.
That's the big distraction right there.
There's a war room apparently in England where they're trying to figure out what to do.
Oh, really?
I heard did you hear about that?
No.
Yes. There's a war room.
I think I tuned
The
out.
Royals.
The
Royals
War Room.
have got they're about to go to war.
Well, the wanker is, he's put out this book, Spare, or whatever it's called. Yeah, I guess everybody falls down one side or the other. Do you support Harry and Meghan? Do you not?
Here it is. The Royals set up a war room to discuss Prince Harry's memoir.
Some Taliban commander is now trolling Harry over his talk about the Afghans that he killed. And I got to look it up. But
What has he said about the Afghans he killed? This is why he was a pilot?
yeah, this is while he was over there on duty. I don't know to what degree. I again, full disclosure, haven't read the book.
Taliban leader responds to Prince Harry's reported claim in Spare that he killed 25 fighters in Afghanistan.
I mean, who does that? Who talks? I mean, again,
Very strange.
it's very strange.
But it's also very strange that he was, essentially infiltrated by a very ambitious actress. She used to be on
Was
Deal
he
or No
infiltrated?
Deal. She was one of the Deal
Is that
or No Deal
technically
ladies.
the way it works? Is he
I think
infiltrated
so.
or was she infiltrated?
Well, it depends on who's
yeah.
getting pegged.
Yeah.
Joe Rogan has seen a lot of Hollywood shakeups in his time, but when news broke that Netflix had officially pulled the plug on Meghan Markle's long-hyped series, even he had to stop and shake his head. It wasn't just about a show being canceled. It was about the crumbling of a media empire built on royal titles, emotional interviews, and endless PR spins. On his podcast, Joe didn't hold back. In fact, he called it one of the most predictable endings in Hollywood, and the way he broke it down, it wasn't just commentary. It was a full-on reality check.
I know,
How's
right?
that work?
Well, I'm a little upset with Prince Harry, but other than that, it's working out really well.
Are you mad that he left the throne or whatever the fuck he did?
No, I mean,
Doesn't it make sense?
well, it probably makes sense because, I don't know that he's the sharpest tool in the box, and he's probably thinking we can make a lot more money but they're not supposed to make any money off of being a member of the royal family.
And it seems like that lady is a temptress. She's a siren. She's lured him into the rocks.
I haven't heard that term in a while. She's a harlot, almost.
She's well, harlot's bad, right? She's just powerful. She's
Actually, that's a good point. Harlot and temptress.
Yeah, I think harlots are.
For those of you who are listening, that was the cartoon Meghan and Harry holding their placards, their protesting signs saying, "We want privacy, we want privacy." Okay. And then we've got the twerking video. So we're going to take a look at this together.
Back to back.
Back to back.
I mean, if they're looking at that and think this is clever,
Yeah.
I mean, are they stupid or what?
Well, I think
Because
they
I just
are.
think because it just looks like it's in such poor taste, and yet she thinks that she's a princess and has the right almost to be HRH, although officially
Meghan Markle in allegedly a labor and delivery room with her loser of a husband, pregnant and twerking to allegedly induce labor. I saw this and I sent an emergency 911 text to Kinsey.
To understand why this cancellation is such a big deal, you have to rewind a bit. Meghan Markle and Prince Harry signed a multi-million-dollar deal with Netflix back when they were riding the wave of their royal exit. The world was still curious, the press was still sympathetic, and the couple had just declared they were ready to tell their own stories in their own words. It sounded promising. Netflix bought in, the public tuned in, and then silence. No new hit series, no blockbuster documentaries beyond their initial one. Just a trail of ideas, meetings, and delays. Joe Rogan was skeptical from the start. He said from the beginning that fame and storytelling are not the same thing. Just because you're famous doesn't mean you can make something people want to watch, Joe said. And now that Netflix has axed Meghan's planned animated series and reportedly passed on several other concepts she pitched, his words are starting to sound more like prophecy than opinion. When the topic came up on his show, Joe didn't even seem surprised. He leaned back and said, "Of course it got canceled. What were they even selling? He mocked the idea that Meghan thought she could carry an entire Netflix franchise based solely on her royal past. "You can't keep living off a wedding that happened years ago," he said. "At some point, you have to deliver something real." Joe criticized Meghan for treating her royal status like a brand, not a responsibility. "She left the royal family claiming she wanted privacy," he said. "And then she turned around and tried to build a media empire off her title. That's not privacy. That's marketing." He explained that viewers today are too smart to fall for surface-level stories. "If your show is just another platform to talk about how hard your life is while living in a mansion, people are going to tune out," Joe said, "especially when there are folks out there grinding every day just to make ends meet." Joe talked about Meghan's now canceled Netflix animated project, Pearl. The series was supposed to center on a 12-year-old girl inspired by powerful women from history. On paper, it sounded great, but as Joe pointed out, it had all the buzzwords and none of the substance. He added, "It's like they picked words out of a marketing handbook and glued them together. Where's the actual story?" He blamed the failure not on Hollywood politics or some secret campaign against Meghan, but on a lack of authenticity. "People will watch anything if it feels real," Joe said, but nothing Meghan puts out feels real. It all feels scripted, safe, and focus grouped. Joe brought up how the Netflix deal had started as a symbol of a new chapter. They had a golden opportunity, he said, a fresh start, massive funding, global platforms, and they blew it by thinking the public would automatically care. And then there's the issue of effort. Joe mentioned how Netflix, despite being flooded with content, still rewards creators who actually work hard. "Look at people like Dave Chappelle," he said. "He earns his spot, he writes, he performs, he shows up." Meghan thought she could get the same results by just attaching her name. According to Joe, that's Meghan's biggest miscalculation, thinking that fame would carry her forever. "Fame fades fast when it's not backed by talent or hustle," he said. And Meghan has spent more time polishing her image than creating anything meaningful. Joe also took a jab at how Meghan tends to handle criticism. "She's quick to blame others," he said, "whether it's the royal family, the press, or now Hollywood executives. It's always someone else's fault. But at some point, you have to look in the mirror and ask, am I actually doing the work?" He talked about how Netflix quietly ended development of her projects and how studios started backing away. "That's not cancel culture," Joe said. "That's business. If your content doesn't deliver, you're out. That's the reality." Joe explained that in the entertainment industry, there's a difference between being watched and being wanted. "Sure, Meghan can get views," he said. "People will click out of curiosity, but staying power, that comes from quality, and nothing she's done has shown that." He even compared Meghan's situation to other public figures who tried to pivot into Hollywood without a clear vision. "It's like they think because they're used to cameras being on them, they can suddenly become producers or directors," he said. "But it takes skill, real skill." Joe then reflected on the way Meghan talks about storytelling. "She always says she wants to tell stories that matter," he said. "But what stories? Her own? Again? We've heard it. We've seen the interviews. We know the script." And speaking of interviews, Joe joked about the endless media appearances. "You don't need a Netflix series if you're on every magazine cover already," he said. "People are saturated. They need a break." Joe didn't hide his frustration with how the media still tries to frame Meghan as a misunderstood genius. "She's not being silenced," he said. "She's just not producing anything that connects with people." He gave credit to Netflix for finally making a decision. "At least they pulled the plug," he said. "Too many platforms let celebrities waste money and time just because of a name." Netflix said, "Nope, not working. Move on." Joe also made an interesting point about public trust. "When someone says they want to create for the people but never listens to the people, that's a problem," he said. "And Meghan never listens, it's all projection." He then imagined what would happen if Meghan went back to basics. What if she just stopped trying to control everything, he asked. What if she dropped the PR machine and just told a story without a filter? But even that, Joe admitted, would be hard to believe at this point. She's built a wall so high, even her own fans are struggling to climb it, he said. He wrapped up the segment by saying that Meghan's Netflix cancellation wasn't personal. It was a sign of something bigger. The public is moving on, he said. They're tired of empty words, tired of emotional performances that don't lead anywhere. They want truth. Joe concluded by saying the cameras are still rolling, but the audience is walking out or so, and that's the scariest part for someone who's made their whole life about being seen. As the podcast faded out, Joe's message lingered. Meghan Markle's Netflix chapter didn't end with a bang, it ended with silence. And for a public figure obsessed with being heard, that silence says everything. Joe Rogan's takedown of Meghan Markle's Netflix failure didn't stop at the cancellation itself. As more details started leaking about what went on behind the scenes, Joe took the opportunity to dig even deeper into what he calls one of the most overhyped and under-delivered media flops in recent memory. On a follow-up podcast episode, Joe started by asking a blunt question. What was the point of this Netflix deal anyway? Was it about storytelling or just a trophy to show Hollywood she had arrived? He didn't wait long to answer it himself. It was about appearances. It was about leverage. It was never about content. Joe pulled up reports from insiders who described how Meghan's ideas were often vague, disconnected, and focused more on how she would look than what the audience would get. That's not producing, he said. That's playing dress up with million-dollar budgets. He went into detail about the now canceled Pearl series, pointing out how the concept had all the right marketing phrases, female empowerment, historical inspiration, diversity, but lacked a strong plot, character arcs, or even a finished pilot script. So you can't just string together buzzwords and call it a story, Joe said. Audiences want something to feel, not something to applaud because they were told to. Joe wasn't just roasting the failed show. He was making a broader point about Hollywood's obsession with name value over substance. Meghan's deal is a case study, he explained. When the brand becomes bigger than the work, everything collapses. Then Joe brought up what he called the Meghan effect in the industry. According to several sources, projects that once proudly boasted her name in the pitch deck were now quietly rebranding, detaching from her image altogether. You know it's bad when executives start pretending they were never involved, Joe laughed. It's like reverse celebrity endorsement. He discussed how production teams had allegedly grown frustrated with the lack of follow-through on Meghan's part. One insider was quoted saying, "There was always excitement in meetings, but no execution afterward." Joe pounced on that. That's the difference between a performer and a producer, he said. A performer waits for the camera. A producer builds the set. Joe emphasized that storytelling is about vulnerability, not vanity. Meghan talks a lot about being authentic, he said, but nothing she releases ever feels unfiltered. It's always perfectly lit, carefully scripted, and framed for sympathy. He pointed out that even in their bombshell interviews, there was a noticeable absence of nuance. It's always we were wronged, we were silenced, we were victims. Never. Here's where we made mistakes. People can relate to failure, but they can't relate to someone who never takes responsibility. Joe also took aim at the kind of corporate language Meghan uses to frame her projects. When every sentence includes words like impact, narrative, and voice, but no actual plot or character, that's not writing, he said. That's marketing fluff. He warned that Meghan's team might try to spin the Netflix cancellation as a strategic pivot. Don't be surprised if in a few months she claims she's leaving Hollywood to focus on humanitarian work, he predicted. That's always the exit ramp when things don't work out. But Joe said the public won't buy that anymore. It's one thing to try and fail. It's another to keep pretending it's someone else's fault, he said. If every project you touch falls apart, maybe the problem isn't the media, maybe it's you. He dug into how this Netflix deal was originally promoted as a new chapter for storytelling. They promised powerful, meaningful content. What did we get? One documentary, one podcast, and a canceled cartoon, he said. That's not content. That's a trailer that never becomes a movie. Joe then reflected on the kind of opportunity Meghan wasted. Most people in this industry work their entire lives to get one shot, he said. She was handed a $100 million deal and gave the world a few press releases and a holiday card. Come on. He brought up other creators who started with less and delivered more. Look at the YouTubers and indie filmmakers out there, he said. They don't have a palace or a PR team, but they have hunger. They show up. Meghan, she posed. Joe then shifted into Meghan's broader pattern, jumping into projects without fully understanding the craft. First, it was acting, then royalty, then activism, then podcasting, then producing, he listed. At some point, it stops looking ambitious and starts looking confused. He mocked how Meghan's team always claims her projects are in development. That's Hollywood code for we've written a title and made a mood board, Joe joked. People want to see results, not rough drafts. Then he addressed the silence from Meghan's side after the cancellation news broke. Notice how there's been no statement, no comment. That's not dignity. That's damage control, he said. They're trying to figure out how to spin this, but there's no spin left. It flopped. Joe imagined the meeting room when Netflix gave her the final word. They probably said, look, we've given this every chance. It's not working. And Meghan probably blinked in disbelief because she's not used to hearing no. He said that's the curse of living in a PR bubble. When everyone around you tells you you're brilliant, you start to believe it, even when the evidence says otherwise. Joe warned other celebrities not to fall into the same trap. If you want to work in media, learn the craft. Study it. Don't just assume people will care because your name is trending. He wrapped the conversation by saying, the Markle brand has gone from royalty to reality TV to reruns, and now it might not be coming back. As he closed out the show, Joe made one final point that summed it all up. This isn't about cancel culture. This isn't even about Meghan as a person. This is about accountability. And when you sign a contract, take the money, promise to deliver, and then don't. You don't get to cry foul. You get shown the door. And with that, Joe leaned back and let the silence say the rest. Meghan Markle's Netflix chapter wasn't a tragedy or a conspiracy. It was a masterclass in missed opportunities. And the message, whether whispered by insiders or shouted through cartoon parodies and canceled deals, was crystal clear. The world has moved on.